It's harder because I had 2 patients die over the weekend in the intensive care unit with COVID-19, and neither of them had to die. That's what's hard. What's hard is that the ICU is full of patients that are unvaccinated. I have there are 17 patients in the ICU right now at Eskenazi. None of them are vaccinated. 0. I've seen 1 vaccinated patient since I started this whole thing in intensive care. 1. That person had a transplant. The hard part for me is seeing people die and seeing their families go through that when they didn't have to. We've done a shitty job of vaccinating in Indiana. I'm going to be honest. 53% sucks. We're the 5th worst state in the nation. And so the winter's going to suck. My winter is going to suck. I'm going to be in intensive care unit swimming in COVID patients all winter. And I didn't think that was freaking possible. Even in September, I didn't think that was possible. I thought we were going to go through this wave in September. All these people were going to get infected. We were going to have enough immunity that this wouldn't be happening again. That's not going to be the case. Things are today, we have over 2,000 patients in the hospital in the state of Indiana now with COVID-19. That's been the first time since the last wave, and it's going to this wave will be far worse than September. So I just have to, I don't want to sound like a complainer, but this whole thing's been really tiring. And it's been hard, it's been really hard on all of us. I think I'll just leave it there and take any questions, I guess. I'll get this.
Could you talk about your Facebook initiative?
Oh, so in fact, that's what I'll do right after this. I have to post them. So I hate Facebook, frankly. I'm not on Facebook. But when the pandemic started and I started finding out, and I looked for places where people went for information, people go to Facebook for information. So I re-upped my Facebook account, and I started a page called the Hoosier COVID Update page, where I posted originally every day, and then 3 times a week, and I post once a week on where we're at, what things are happening, what's going on in the hospitals, what to expect. I'll post today on the Omicron variant, and what to expect with that. It's been nice. I think 40-something thousand people follow, which is a lot. It's a lot of responsibility. It's a good community of people. Actually, there's not a lot of, most people there kind of get what's going on and go there for community and stuff like that. And I have a email, HoosierVaccineQuestions@gmail.com, where I answer any questions people have. When they don't want to ask it on the page, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll have a phone call with people. I've done that before. A lot of people are there's just a lot of information that's bad, that's just not true out there. And so I try to, as much as I can, put stuff out there that's good and useful.
I've got a couple questions I thought would be helpful just for the group, but if anyone wants to chime in first.
I'll answer anything.
Yeah.
You talked about the people in the ICU being unvaccinated, I think maybe with the exception of one.
Yeah.
Have any of those people already had COVID the first time and they're back? I'm curious about the immunity.
Yeah, that's a great question.
From having it already versus.
Yeah, if you've had COVID, I have not had COVID. My daughter's had COVID. My sister's had COVID. My wife's sister just had COVID. It ruined her event because she couldn't come to Thanksgiving. If you've had COVID, you have some immunity. That's true. You have some immunity. We don't know how much. We don't know. Well, we don't know how long it will last. It's probably different for every individual. Because the dose, if you got COVID, let's say, I don't know what dose of COVID that you got. I don't know how much of an immune response you had to that because I don't know how much virus you had. If you get a vaccine, we know exactly how much spike protein you got. So at least the thought process is that the immunity from the vaccine is more durable and more consistent than if you've just had COVID. We know this. We know the following. If you've had COVID, you have a 2.3, and you're not vaccinated, you're 2.3 times more likely to be infected. If you've had COVID and you're not then someone who's been infected and then vaccinated. Does that make sense? If you've just been infected, you're 2.3 times more likely to get COVID again than someone who's been infected and then gets the vaccine. If you have been infected, you are 5.5 times as likely to be hospitalized with COVID than someone who's been vaccinated. So not infected and vaccinated, just vaccinated. So if you've had COVID, you do have some immunity. We don't know how long it will last, and it is frankly not as good as having the vaccine. This is a common question we get all the time. There's a paper out of Israel that suggested that people who got infected had better immunity than people who get the vaccine. That's the weight of the evidence at this point suggests that is not the case. More studies have come out that have actually said that that's probably not the case. But you do have some immunity if you've been infected. What else?
I know one of the issues people have is vaccine hesitancy.
Yep.
And some of them say maybe the sickest I've ever been is when I got the flu shot.
Yeah.
And I haven't gotten a flu shot since, and it makes me very cautious or concerned about getting the COVID shot as well. Could you speak to that concern?
Yeah, I got sick after my second COVID shot for sure. A lot of people get sick after the second COVID shot. I had backache, fever, felt like crap for about 12 hours, and then I was fine. That's your immune system working. That's the way it's supposed to work. And that could happen with your flu shot. It doesn't often happen with the flu shot. Sometimes it does. And I tell those people, because I'm a lung doctor, so I have a lung clinic where I see patients with lung diseases. Those people need to get the flu shot. The flu is really bad for people with chronic lung disease. So is COVID, but and they're like, well, doc, it makes me feel sick. And like, yeah, but you're not hospitalized, right? I mean, you're going to have 8 hours where you feel yucky, but that's what you pay to get sort of immunity. That's how you get it. So yeah, I'll be honest. If you haven't been vaccinated and you get your second shot, you're probably going to feel like crap 8 hours later. Not everybody does. My wife didn't. I felt like crap. And then after my booster, I got a big lymph node down here for about 2 days. It swole. I just felt weird. It's just my immune system. It's normal.
But if you had a bad reaction to the flu shot, is there any reason to think it would be correlated to the experience with COVID shot?
They're all different. In fact, these vaccines are totally different. The mRNA vaccines are totally different than any of the flu shots. So I wouldn't think so.
Okay. What about if, like, I know people who, like their kid, now that they've been able to get them, didn't have a good experience. They got feeling sick. That's kind of making me question a little bit whether I should get my kids vaccinated. What's your experience on that, or what would you say to somebody who is concerned about getting their kid vaccinated because they heard someone had some bad experiences?
Look, I'm going to be totally honest. If there are a certain number of shots in your family, you should get it instead of your kid. I mean, if you're only going to vaccinate so many people in your family, and you're going to hem and haw on other people, hem and haw about the kids, they're probably going to be fine if they get COVID, but the adults need the vaccine. Look, what we see now in the hospital is most of the 70-plus people are vaccinated. I mean, almost like 80%. So the hospital last April was all 70, 80-year-old people, and they almost all died. I mean, it was just a tragedy. It's not that way anymore. That's 40-year-old people, 33-year-old people. I had a 24-year-old CrossFitter die 3 months ago with COVID. I mean, it is regular human adults that get this. So I when people my kids are vaccinated, all of them, all 4 of them. My wife's a pediatrician, so of course they're going to be vaccinated. That was a decision that we made. But when I talk to people about vaccinating, if the parents aren't vaccinated, then the discussion I'm going to have with them is not about vaccinating the kids. It's about vaccinating themselves. If you're vaccinated and you're questioning whether or not to get your kids vaccinated, I'm not sure what to say. It's super safe. We vaccinated millions and millions of people, including kids. You know, the reason that I got my kids vaccinated is because my parents are both in their 70s. They're fully vaccinated, but those people still are at risk at some point. So it's not so much for my kids, but it's for my grandparents and for my wife who has cancer. So I don't know. So to me, it's I'm a doctor and my wife's a doctor. We know these things are safe, and so it's hard for me to kind of speak outside of that.
There was some evidence that there might have been a little problem with inflammation of the heart muscle for younger, particularly males.
Yep.
What's the story with that?
There is. So it's called myocarditis. It's inflammation of the heart muscle. Generally happens in males between ages 16 and 24. It's still super rare. It happens like, I don't know, 3 out of every 100,000 vaccinations. It's mild and self-limiting. And the thing that people need to understand is that COVID itself causes myocarditis like 1,000 times more frequently than this vaccine does. So myocarditis is definitively a risk, especially young men. It's usually not much of a problem at all. And honestly, if you got myocarditis from the shot, it's likely that you're going to get a lot more myocarditis from the virus itself, because that COVID causes it a lot more than the shot does. So, and myocarditis is common in viruses. Viruses commonly cause myocarditis.
But it's recoverable in most cases.
Yeah, almost. It's usually you just have kind of positional chest discomfort and it lasts about a day or 2, and then those kids are fine. I don't know that anyone's died of myocarditis from the shot. Multiple kids have died of myocarditis from COVID-19.
Okay.
Yeah. Go.
So what?
Yeah. Yep. So I think we've done it a disservice. So here's the thing you have to understand, and I'm going to fully admit. So one of the things that people frequently will email me be like, look, this thing is so new. This is one of the concerns that I have, and I'm going to admit this vaccine is definitely. I mean, we went from not even knowing this virus existed to having a vaccine that was in my deltoid in less than a year. That is massively fast. So there is an essence of the fact that we are kind of building this plane as it's off of the ground. And the boosters is a good example. I don't personally think that the 3rd shot should be thought of as a booster. This should be thought of as a 3-shot series. Hepatitis B vaccination is a 3-shot series. DTaP is a 3-shot series. This is now a 3-shot series. I'll be honest, I don't think that we're going to need any more shots after the 3rd shot. We don't for hepatitis B. And it looks like that's probably the case here. So, in my opinion, us calling it a booster is a misnomer. It's the completion of the series.
So it's not like the next year we're going to come go, hey, another shot, just like the first shot.
Look, I hope not. I don't want to get shots at I don't want to get shots every year. If I don't know what's going to happen, I would get boosted if I were you. Here's the reason why. The further out you are from your 2nd shot, the less effective the shot is at preventing infection. Okay. Generally, those are mild, but even severe disease starts to go up at the tail end of 6 or 8 months. It's still pretty rare if you're a relatively healthy individual, but it can be basically will go back down to almost 0 with the booster. Now, the other sort of fly in the ointment is this Omicron variant that's coming, or who knows what's going to happen this season. But you want to be boosted if that thing gets here. I have no idea if it's going to come. I think everyone has their. I think we're being a little bit chicken little about this Omicron variant, frankly, because we just know nothing about it and everyone's freaking out. But so I don't know. I'm boosted. My wife's boosted. My folks are boosted. Or we've gotten our third shot. So if you're on the fence, I wouldn't be on the fence anymore because your immunity probably is waning. You're probably gonna get to a threshold where breakthrough infection and/or severe disease becomes a real risk, especially if you're above the age of 23.
Yes.
So if you've had the first 2 shots, either Moderna or Pfizer,
Yeah.
and you get the third shot, I understand now you can get either
Yes.
one. Is there an advantage if you've had 2 Pfizers to get the Moderna or vice versa? Or
So there may be a small advantage to getting Moderna. I got Pfizer for all 3. My wife got Moderna for all 3. She thinks she's better than me now. But we don't know. The bottom line is we don't know. The incremental advantage is probably minuscule. The important thing is to get some mRNA vaccine. I wouldn't get Johnson & Johnson. If you need another shot, whether it's your first shot, your second shot, or your third shot, I would not get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. I would get.
Why is that?
It's a different platform. It's not the mRNA vaccine. It's not as safe. I don't think personally. I don't think the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is safe. There have been 6 deaths linked to vaccines, all of them from the Johnson & Johnson.
Really?
All within 2 weeks of the shot. So it's not like if you had Johnson & Johnson, don't freak out. You're fine. It actually does provide really good immunity with an mRNA. First of all, and then with an mRNA booster on top of it, your immunity is actually of all of the combinations, the Johnson & Johnson followed by an mRNA is the best immunity of all of them. But I don't like Johnson & Johnson because of side effect profile. The mRNA vaccines have almost, besides myocarditis for young men, and you and I are both well outside that window, is almost nil. So I'll be honest, if you have the choice, I would get Moderna, regardless of what you got for your first 2. If the only thing they have is Pfizer, that's what I got. You're fine. You're going to be fine. It's great. Yeah. 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 You could. It's possible that one of you guys here, it's possible. Yeah. That's the problem with this virus. The problem with this virus is that it affects people. It infects people, and there's a period where you don't have any symptoms, and then some people will get symptoms and some people won't. So there are people who have antibodies to the virus, meaning that they've been infected and they never had any symptoms at all. And a lot of kids probably are asymptomatically infected. It's just you have no idea who's going to be what. You don't know if you're going to be the guy who doesn't even feel any symptoms and comes into work, no problem, or the guy who's in my intensive care unit on a ventilator. So.
Could you talk a little bit about the Omicron virus itself? What?
So
it's early, but
okay. If you remember, we had the original virus, the OG virus, was bad. Then the Delta variant came. The Delta variant's awful. It goes from person to person much easier. It's been the dominant strain for the last 8 months. It caused this gigantic wave of bad disease in late summer here. Summer in the ICUs here was a disaster. We had to we hired a doctor from Texas to come in and help us on a locums basis. We hired a doctor from Boston to come in. We didn't have enough physicians to take care of people here, so we had to bring in people from outside to help in the intensive care units. Delta did that. Now we have this Omicron virus. I don't know what it's going to be like. Everyone's freaking out. We don't have any data. We don't know. It may be a giant nothing burger, frankly, or it could be, if it's worse than Delta, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what we're going to do. So I don't really have answers yet. We'll have answers over the next 2 weeks.
could you talk to another thing that's come out recently is progress on this, both the Merck and the Pfizer antiviral pill?
Yeah, these are great. So these pills are antiviral oral drugs. You got to take them within 5 days of getting symptoms, and they actually work really well. They reduce hospitalizations by like 80% in the one and 50% in the other. This is a really good thing. There are problems with it, and some of the problems are with access. You have to get the drug within a certain amount of time to get it in you in order to have it work. If you're excited about the oral antiviral pills, then I got great news for you. We got this vaccine, and it is even better. It is 97% effective rather than 80%. It's there all the time. You don't have to get to your doctor within 5 days of getting symptoms. I mean, the problem is the miracle that we've been waiting for is here. It's the vaccine. It's not these pills. These pills will be helpful. For me, these pills will be helpful for people who can't create immunity, patients with cancer, transplants, other immune disease problems. But in my opinion, if you've had the vaccine and you get COVID, you don't need those pills because you've got what you need inside of you. So they're great. I don't want to sort of poo-poo them, but they are a distant second place to vaccination.
Just a couple other logistical questions. I mean, you not only a doctor, but obviously also, walk around the world like all of us do in different ways. I mean, how do you handle with both yourself and with your family? How do you just navigate out in public these days, whether it's indoor or outdoor settings? Or, I mean, as someone who is probably as knowledgeable as anybody, certainly in this room, how do you deal with day-to-day life?
I don't wear a mask outdoors. That's the answer.
Okay.
I'm a runner. I don't like wearing a mask. I don't like wearing this mask right now. I don't wear a mask outdoors. I don't wear a mask indoors when I'm around people that I know are vaccinated. So all of my colleagues that I work with, all of the physicians in my group, we're all vaccinated. And so when I'm in a meeting with them, as long as I know everyone in the room, we will take off our masks. Although a lot of us have started leaving them on with the current surge because it's starting to get bad again, and there is some transmission risk with people being unmasked. I don't know how I feel about that. I'll tell you this: in the hospital, we wear masks all the time. That was not normal before. Like I'm in this mask this weekend when I was at Eskenazi, rounding 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. I had my mask on the whole time. I hate it. I don't want to do this after. Like, there are people who are like, we should do this all the time. Nobody's getting sick, and I'm like, no. I want to see faces. When I go to the grocery store, I wear a mask. I didn't for a little while in the summer. When cases were really low, we were below like 500 cases per day in the state. I was living my best life. I had Thanksgiving this weekend with my family, my mom and dad, my brother and sister, their kids. There's 20 of us total. We had a normal Thanksgiving. Last year we had Thanksgiving outside on my brother's driveway in 35-degree weather. It sucked. This year it was completely normal. We are all vaccinated with the exception of my two youngest, a niece and nephew. They're 3, they can't be vaccinated yet. And we understood that there was a little risk, but for us it was worth it. So my life has largely gone back to something that looks like normal, although now that cases are starting to go up again, like I'm not going to the gym again. I'm just running around the house, running at home. I will probably stop going to church pretty soon just because I don't want to transmit. I don't want the virus. The hospitals are getting to be a disaster again, and I don't want to contribute to that. So yeah.
What about with your family?
What do you mean?
Interacting? I mean, do you go to restaurants or with the kids? How does that work? Or go indoor spaces versus?
So my kid, we're all vaccinated, right? Even
Yeah.
my youngest has had his first dose. We were going to restaurants. We're not now. Now the cases are high again. We're above 3,000 daily cases in the state. So we've backed off of things that we were doing before. We were going to church actually this summer before the wave in August, September. We were back to going to church. Our church is masked, and I actually helped the pastor with sort of what we should be doing. But they've gone back to singing and stuff like that. As of just like the last few weeks, we've stopped going to restaurants. Like now, I'm not until this wave starts to subside. I won't go into a restaurant because I don't. You know, if I knew everyone there was, if a restaurant required the vaccine, I would go in there. I would go to that restaurant because I know all those people are vaccinated. So their likelihood of having the virus in them is about 6 times less than someone who's unvaccinated. You're about 6 times less likely to be infected. So it's not 0, but it's, I mean, you know, 70% less, more than that. So, what else? Other than that, I get together with my folks normally. I mean, they're both vaccinated. We're all vaccinated. So.
And do you mask up whenever you're going to be around unvaccinated people right now?
I mask here because I don't know if I'll get a mask.
Sure.
So, yes. If I go to the grocery store, I mask. My kids do the same. My kids all mask at school. They have to. I don't want that to last forever either. I want that to be over as soon as humanly possible.
What do you look at to see to improve? I mean, if obviously you're keeping on top of this stuff every day, but when you say, you know, I want to stop doing this as soon as it gets better, as someone like as individuals like ourselves who don't deal with this every day, what would be the benchmarks and ways we would kind of have that same guidance? Is it?
For me, it's hospitalizations.
Hospitalizations.
You know, we're at 2,000 people in the state in the hospital with COVID. I mean, look, I was at Eskenazi this weekend, I said, and there were a total of, what did I say, 38 patients, and of those, 38, about 45% were COVID. What people don't understand is that hospitals can't absorb 45% of anything for very long. Like it just doesn't work that way. Like there's never a time. I've been an ICU physician for 12 years, and there's never been a time where 45% of my ICU was filled with one problem. That just doesn't happen. Or Christ, in the first surge, it was 90%, 97%. I don't know how many, not 90+%. Was all the same thing. That does not ever happen. So my interest is in, I don't care if we find cases, but if everyone's vaccinated and we have 2,000 cases a day, but they're all people at home laying on their couch drinking, you know, orange juice and watching Squid Game on Netflix. I don't care about that. I couldn't care less. I will stop doing all of this stuff once that happens. I'll stop even looking at numbers, and I'll tell the state to stop sharing with everyone so they stop freaking out. But what I care about is when the hospitals get so full, which is going to happen soon, that we have to stop doing surgeries. So I look at hospitalizations, and the peak of the first surge in last year, we had 3,400 people in the hospital. December of last year. At one time in the state. That is an astronomical number. We now have 2,000, so we're more than half of that, and it's going up like this. So for me, it's that. And that often follows cases. So what will happen is we'll have 6 weeks where the cases go like this, and then we'll have 6 weeks where they go like this. And the question will be, how low do we go here? And what happens? Because we went like this, and then it came down like this, but it's still very high, and now it's going up again from a very high point. So I don't know what's going to happen. So for me, it's hospitalizations.
What's a normal level, or what 500, or what would be a level at which you'd start to be comfortable then? 2,000 is way too high, but what's
500? If it was a steady 500, that's still a lot. And those people, keep in mind, like those are all unvaccinated people. Like we don't need to have any of those people. But 500 we can manage, sure, easily. Yeah, and then I'll be like, okay. We'll go back to taking my mask off. I'll go back to Orange Theory. Go back to the Vogue theater. See the shows. Normal human.
Yeah.
No, that's the problem.
So, one last question. There's lots of, you alluded to at the beginning, there's lots of COVID-related information out there. But as people try to distinguish between, I would say, information versus misinformation, what sources do you feel people should look to or try to consult as they educate themselves and try to stay safe?
This is a hard question for me to answer because here's the thing. It's an easy question to answer, but the answer is not. A lot of people don't like the answer that I give because a lot of people, when I give the answer, the people who want a different answer come back and say that's the mainstream media, and I don't listen to the mainstream media. But the mainstream media is where the good information is, right? I mean, Indy Star, read a newspaper, listen to the 6 o'clock news on the TV, and get off of social media. That's a cesspool. I mean, I say that as someone who's on social media, trying to put out good stuff, but it's a cesspool. The problem is not only is there misinformation is just people that interpret things the wrong way, but we're more dealing with disinformation, which is people purposely putting out bullshit that's just false on purpose for whatever reason. And there's a boatload of that. So read the newspaper, reputable newspapers, watch the 6 o'clock news, and avoid. And if it's not on there, if you see something online and you go to what's considered to be a reputable news source and it doesn't say anything about it, then it's probably nothing. What else? Come on, you can ask me anything.
Do you think them opening concerts up then in like July contributed to the surge?
I don't know, man. I went to concerts this summer. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I went to outdoor concerts this summer, multiple. I went to City on the Prairie. I went to one of the ones that they did at Holiday Park. Those were cool, actually. Those were really cool. The outdoor ones there. I went down to the Hi-Fi Annex and saw a band down there. All the ones I went to were outdoors. Do I think that contributed? I don't know what to say. I mean, look, if there was a concert and I knew everyone there was going to be vaccinated, like it was a requirement not only to show a negative test, but to everyone there was vaccinated, and it was somebody I liked, I might go to that. The risk there is relatively low, is pretty low. It's not zero. It's, but it's, the Vogue Theater is probably not a place I would go right now. It's poor ventilation. It is, the ceiling's kind of high, but it's a relatively small. They pack people in there. If you look, there's a Georgia Tech has this online calculator where you could put your county and how many people will be at the event and the likelihood that COVID's going to be there. And last week for my post, or 2 weeks ago for my post, I did it, and I did it. Marion County, 100 people, and there was a 56% chance that COVID was in that building. And that was 2 weeks ago. We were like, we were at half the cases we are now. So you may be up to 90% now. So I wouldn't go to a concert right now. But I went to concerts this summer outdoors, and at the theater where we were down at 200 cases a day, I would go to an indoor concert easily. And honestly, we're gonna have to, this ain't going away. Clearly this ain't going away, right? I mean, we thought this was gonna go away. There was a point where we were like, hey, herd immunity, it's gonna go away. We were idiots. Clearly not gonna go away. We're gonna be living with this thing for the next 5 years. So we're gonna have to figure out for ourselves, okay, what do I consider to be a safe amount of disease in the community where I can go do fun stuff? And for me, it's not the same for everything. An indoor concert at the Vogue, less than 500 cases a day in the state, and knowing that I'm well vaccinated. Outdoor concert, I'd go to an outdoor concert now, no problem. Going back to the gym, once this wave comes down or below 2,000 daily cases, I'll go back to the gym. I'm vaccinated. I feel relatively safe. But it's gonna happen again. It's until unless we get to, I don't know how many people have to be vaccinated, 95% maybe? I have no idea. We said 70 to begin with, but now that then the Delta variant came and it was all over. So, I don't know.
How about travel?
I actually just traveled. I just went to Disney World with my family. It was a zoo. I was nervous about it. We're all vaccinated. They make you wear masks inside. I wore masks on the plane, wore N95 masks on the plane. Planes are actually really well ventilated when the ventilation is on. When the plane's running and in the air, that ventilation's on. They're turning over that air in there about 12 times a minute, or 12 times a minute or an hour. I don't forget, whatever it is. It's a lot. But the problem is when they're sitting on the tarmac before you take off, you know how stuffy it is because there's no air movement. That ventilation's off. That's when it makes me nervous. So we went. It was obviously the parks are mostly outdoors. We spent some time at the pool. So it depends more, in my opinion, on what you're going to do when you go there, right?
Yeah.
And Florida's kind of, they're kind of okay right now. We're worse than they are right now. But if you're going to go someplace, sometimes we go to the beach. We rent a house on the beach. We don't see anybody else. We cook our own meals in the house. We go to the beach. That's safe.
Yeah.
But if you're going to go to Sturgis or Lollapalooza,
Yeah,
I mean,
go back to Colorado to see the family.
yeah, I would
Worried
feel
about
I would feel
DIA.
comfortable with that. I would feel comfortable with that, truthfully. Especially if you're vaccinated. If you're vaccinated, and I would feel really comfortable.
Is there anything you'd feel unvaccinated people would be comfortable doing?
Not in public.
Yeah.
Not in public because no. If you are unvaccinated and you've not gotten COVID yet, you're going to get COVID at some point. Which is neither here nor there, but the problem is if I could look at you and be like, oh, you have X, Y, and Z characteristics, you're going to get severe COVID and be in the intensive care. Or you have A, B, and C characteristics, you're going to be fine. That would be great. But I have people in my intensive care unit that I'm like, why in the hell is this person so sick from COVID-19? I mean, we say it's always these, old people, which it was to begin with. It killed a lot of old people. But now it's not. It's whoever it wants to kill. So, to me, I wouldn't, if I was unvaccinated right now, if we hadn't had the vaccines, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys. I would be Zooming this. I would not be comfortable being in a room with this many humans. So, if I was unvaccinated, I wouldn't do any of that stuff. I can't tell you the number of families that it's mind-blowing that think that thought that this was nothing and then there you have a loved one that's dead. What else?
Anything? Okay.